Hey everyone, I'm Christina Miles, a user experience designer. Today we are going to be prototyping with Gamepad in Figma. Figma is a powerful design and prototyping tool that you can use for both your UX and UI project. And if you are new to Figma, I highly recommend you checking out tutorials from the official Figma channel. So let's get started. In this tutorial, we are going to focus on prototyping with a physical gamepad. It becomes very handy when you need to make a prototype for a project. We are looking at the simple shop feature for the game. Obviously, we are not going to create everything from scratch, as it gets to be too long. We will look at a project that I have created and prepared for our tutorial. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. So let's go ahead with that. As you can see, I have all my icons and buttons grouped here. Same as for components that we need for prototype. You can also keep them in another project to avoid deleting or accidental change if you work with other people at the same project. Here, I have set up a couple frames that we need for our game shop and place some store items and other components such as buttons and the rest. Let's look at the store item component that is set in a row of thumbnails. I've given the first one focus, and I have set up two more screens with another item pack focused state. Now we are ready to set up our first simple gamepad interaction. We can start by going into prototype mode and going to the first frame and dragging out an interaction noodle over the next frame. Let's set the interaction on K and gamepad. For example, I'm using a PS4 controller that is paired with my PC. Select this area and press the gamepad button on your paired controller. Here, I am moving the controller right, and you will see axis 0 plus fill in space. This confirms what button pressed on the gamepad. Now let's do that again on the next frame and again for another screen. But first, we are going to have the left gamepad interaction to go back to the previous frame. You can stack those interactions on the same object. Now it's all wired up. Let's take a look and see how it works. I'm going to start with the first frame and keep hitting the right key until I reach, and I can also return all the way back. All good, we are ready to map other interaction. Let's return back to our prototype tab. Let's look at the toolbar navigation that we need to add interaction to it as well. We have 4 tabs: featured, limited time, car parks, and mini sets. We are going to follow similar process as before to map it up. Going to the first frame and dragging out an interaction noodle over to that frame. Selecting a gamepad, but this time when we select the area, we press R1 button on our PS4 controller. And instead of Smart Animate, we are going to use Instant Animation. You can also use the side menu in Figma to add interaction to a selected frame. Sometimes it may be quicker if you have a very large project, but in that case, it's very important to give a meaningful name to frames and components so that one could easily choose it from the list. Let's repeat to the rest of the frames, and don't forget to map the back interaction with L1 button on a gamepad. And let's have a look. You can see how I can navigate between tabs in the menu as well as select different items in the store. All is good, and it's time to return back to our last part of the tutorial. The idea is that players can select any item in the store and look at it, see details, and buy if wanted, or go back, select something else. I have prepared a set of components that we need for our overlays for that. Now we need to select our frame with one of our items in the store. And as usual, select the frame and dragging out an interaction noodle over to that frame, selecting a gamepad. This time on the frame here, I am mapping the cross button on my controller to Open Overlay. So select Open Overlay. Open Overlay has different settings. like position and checkboxes for close when clicking outside and overlay background. The position will define where on the prototype screen the overlay will be displayed. You can also see that here is 3 commonly used positions: center, top left, bottom center. We are going to keep the central position as it is our intentional position for overlay, and we will need to add a black background with 80% opacity to it. We also want to close that overlay by pressing a circle button. Let's add one more interaction to our overlay, following the same steps, but set up it to a close overlay. We have other buttons on that overlay, but let's not bother with that at the moment. So we need to repeat that step for all our frames. I did a couple of different overlays, so I will map them accordingly to the proper sets in our store. So let's see what we have now. I'm selecting a set in the store, and when I press cross, I can see the overlay, and when I press circle, I can close overlay. You can refine your project and add the rest of the interactions, but this hopefully gave you a very good understanding of how to create a prototype marked with a gamepad. I hope you found this tip helpful, and thank you all for watching.